The chains were cold against his wrists. Commander Elias Vance had worn many things in his 38 years of life. Military uniforms, diplomatic robes, the simple clothes of a man who wanted peace, but he had never worn chains before. 2 guards dragged him forward. They were Vethrani, tall and thin with pale blue skin and eyes like black marbles. Their fingers felt like ice through his shirt. Elias did not fight them. There was no point. He was one human in a station filled with beings who had already decided he was guilty. The hall of eternal verdict opened before him like the mouth of some great beast. Elias had heard stories about this place. Every species in the galaxy had heard stories. The hall was older than any civilization, older than the elder races themselves. No one knew who built it. The walls were made of a dark stone that seemed to drink the light. Strange symbols covered every surface, written in a language that no translator could read, and in the center of the hall stood the arbiter's stone. It was a crystal obelisk, 3 times the height of a man. Once, according to legend, it had glowed with golden light. Once, it had spoken with the voice of justice itself. But that was 12,000 years ago. Now it was dark and silent. Most beings thought it was just a dead rock, a relic of a time that never really existed. Elias felt something strange when he looked at it. A pull, a hum that seemed to live in his bones. But he pushed the feeling away. He had bigger problems. The guards threw him to his knees before the 5 great seats of the tribunal. Each seat held a representative of one of the elder races, the Vethrani, the Zythran, the Cathari, the Morvax, the Ilindri. These were the species that ruled the galaxy. They had traveled the stars when humans were still living in caves. Humans had only joined galactic society 200 years ago. In that time, they had been tolerated. Sometimes they were even respected, but they were never equals. They were too young, too wild, too emotional. The Vethrani High Adjudicator rose from her seat. Her name was Sereth Voss, and her face was as cold as her planet's frozen moons. She held a data tablet in her long fingers. "Commander Elias Vance of Earth," she said. Her voice echoed through the hall. "You stand accused of the massacre of 3,000 Cathari civilians on the colony world of Sereth 4. How do you answer?" Elias lifted his head. His dark hair was messy, and there was dried blood on his lip from where a guard had hit him. But his eyes were steady. "I am innocent," he said. "I was never on Sereth 4. I have never harmed a civilian in my life." A sound rose from the Cathari section of the hall. The Cathari were smaller beings, covered in soft brown fur with large, sad eyes. They were known as gentle creatures, artists and healers. The survivors of Sereth 4 sat in rows behind their representative, and their grief filled the air like a physical weight. "Lies," shouted Ambassador Kethmora. Tears ran down his furred face. "We have seen the evidence. We have seen your face. You burned our children." "The evidence has been fabricated," Elias said. "Someone is framing me. If you would just silence." "High Adjudicator," Sereth's voice cut through the noise. "You will speak only when permitted." She touched her tablet, and holographic images appeared in the air. Elias saw himself or something that looked exactly like him walking through a burning colony. He watched as the figure raised a weapon and fired into a crowd of screaming Cathari. He watched bodies fall. His stomach turned. He wanted to vomit. But he had not done this. He knew he had not done this. "Ship logs place your vessel in orbit above Sereth 4. Sereth continued. "Your DNA was found at the scene. 17 survivors have identified you as the killer. What do you say to this?" "I say that someone has gone to great effort to destroy me," Elias replied. "I am a peace officer. I negotiate. I do not kill. On the day of the massacre, I was investigating a weapons syndicate in the outer systems. My real logs will show. Your logs have been examined. They show what I have described. Then they have been altered." The Zythran ambassador made a clicking sound. His name was Kethax, and he was an insectoid creature with gleaming black eyes and mandibles that never stopped moving. "The human grows desperate," he said. "This is typical of their species. They act on emotion, and then they lie to escape the consequences." Elias stared at the Zythran. There was something in those black eyes, something that looked almost like satisfaction. A door at the side of the hall opened, and a woman walked in. She was human, with short gray hair and a face lined by years of fighting impossible battles. Dr. Yuna Chen had been assigned as Elias's advocate. In theory, She could speak in his defense. In practice, humans had almost no legal standing in the tribunal. High Adjudicator, Yuna said, bowing slightly. I request permission to present counter-evidence. Sereth looked at her the way one might look at an insect. You may speak. Briefly. Thank you. Yuna pulled up her own data. Commander Vance has served the Peacekeeping Corps for 15 years. His record shows 37 successful negotiations, 0 combat incidents. He has saved lives, not taken them. The man in that footage does not match his psychological profile or his skills. Elias Vance is a diplomat. The killer on Sereth 4 was a trained soldier. Perhaps he hid his true nature, Sereth said. Or perhaps someone created a copy of him. Biosynthetic cloning technology exists. The syndicate he was investigating has access to it. The hall went quiet for a moment. Elias saw something flicker in Sereth's eyes. Was it doubt? Or was it something else? Your theories are not evidence, Sereth finally said. They are the desperate inventions of a species trying to protect one of its own. Kethax clicked his mandibles again. The tribunal has heard enough. We all know what the human did. Let us move to judgment. The trial will conclude in 3 cycles, Sereth announced. Until then, the accused will be held in the detention level. She struck her staff against the floor. This session is ended. The guards grabbed Elias and pulled him to his feet. As they dragged him past the arbiter's stone, he felt that strange pull again. Stronger this time. The hum in his bones became almost a voice. Without thinking, he reached out and touched the cold crystal. For just a moment, a heartbeat light flickered deep within the stone. Golden, ancient, alive. Then the guards yanked him away, and the light was gone. Did you see that? One guard asked the other. See what? The stone is dead. Everyone knows that. Elias looked back as they dragged him through the doors. The arbiter's stone stood dark and silent, but he had seen the light. He had felt it. Something was waking up. In the hall, Yuna Chen remained alone with the great stone. She had seen the flicker too, and as she stood there in the ancient hall, surrounded by the symbols of a forgotten age, she began to wonder if the legends might be more than just stories. Her communicator buzzed. A message from an unknown source. She opened it and read 3 words that changed everything. The clone exists. Someone in this station knew the truth. Someone was willing to help, but time was running out. In 3 days, Elias Vance would face judgment, and the entire galaxy had already decided he was guilty. The detention cell was small and cold. Elias sat on the hard metal bench and stared at the wall. He had not slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the footage. He saw his own face killing innocent people. He saw children falling. He had not done it. He knew he had not done it. But the images haunted him anyway. The door opened, and Yuna Chen walked in. Her face was tired, but her eyes were sharp. She sat down across from him and placed a small device on the table between them. It made a soft humming sound. Scrambler, she explained. We have 10 minutes before they notice. Did you find something? Yuna leaned forward. Someone contacted me. Anonymous. They sent me a data fragment, a piece of a deleted file from the syndicate servers. Elias, the clone exists. Someone made a perfect copy of you. Same face, same voice, same DNA. They used it to commit the massacre. Elias felt something loosen in his chest. Proof. There was proof. Can we show this to the tribunal? Yuna's face darkened. I tried. The High Adjudicator refused to accept it. She said it was unverified data from an unknown source. She said it was probably a human forgery. Of course she did. Elias laughed bitterly. They do not want the truth. They want someone to punish. It is worse than that. Yuna lowered her voice. I have been digging. The syndicate you were investigating, they have connections everywhere. Powerful connections. Someone inside the tribunal is protecting them. Who? I do not know yet. But think about it. Someone fabricated perfect evidence. Someone altered your ship logs. Someone made sure you would be in the wrong place at the wrong time. This was planned, Elias. Someone wanted you, specifically. Elias thought about the Zithran ambassador. The way he had watched the trial with those cold black eyes. The satisfaction in his clicking voice. The Zithran, he said. Kethax. He seems too happy about all this. I noticed that too. But I have no proof. And even if I did, the Zithran Dominion is one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. No one would believe that they would frame a single human for murder. Why would they? What did they gain? Yuna was quiet for a moment. War, she finally said. The Cathari are peaceful, but they are also proud. If they believe a human killed their people, they will demand justice. Other species will take sides. Old alliances will break. And in the chaos, the Zithran could expand their territory. They have done it before. Elias felt cold. 3,000 innocent lives, destroyed not out of hatred or madness, but as a political move. A chess piece in a game he did not even know he was playing. We need to find the clone, he said. If we can prove it exists, I am working on it. But we only have 2 more days. The scrambler beeped. Their time was almost up. There is something else, Yuna said quickly. When they brought you into the hall yesterday, you touched the arbiter's stone. I saw light inside it. Elias nodded slowly. I felt something. Like it was calling to me. The stone has been dead for 12,000 years. The elder races say it is just a symbol now, a reminder of the old laws. But the legends say it was created by the precursors, the first civilization. They say it could see into a person's soul and know if they were guilty or innocent. You think it is waking up? I think something is happening. And I think it has something to do with you. The door buzzed. A guard's voice came through the speaker. Advocate Chen, your time is up. Yuna stood. She looked at Elias with something that might have been hope. Do not give up. I will find the truth. I promise. Then she was gone, and Elias was alone again. The next 2 days passed like a nightmare. The trial continued in the Great Hall. Witness after witness came forward. Cathari survivors pointed at Elias and wept. They described how the killer had walked through their homes, burning everything, shooting everyone. They described how he had smiled. Elias wanted to scream. That was not him. He would never smile at suffering. He had spent his whole life trying to prevent pain, not cause it, but no one listened. The Zithran ambassador spoke of humanity's violent history. He listed every war, every crime, every dark moment from Earth's past. He painted humans as a dangerous species that should never have been allowed into galactic society. This massacre is proof, Kethak said. Humans cannot be trusted. Their emotions make them unstable. Their nature makes them killers. Yuna fought back. She presented psychological profiles. She showed records of Elias's peace missions. She argued that the evidence was too perfect, too convenient, but the tribunal had already made up its mind. On the 3rd day, High Adjudicator Sereth rose to deliver the verdict. The tribunal has examined all evidence, she said. Her voice was flat, without emotion. We find Commander Elias Vance guilty of the massacre of Sereth IV. The sentence is neural dissolution. His consciousness will be erased as a warning to all who would commit such crimes. The Cathari section of the hall erupted in cheers and tears. Justice, they believed, had been served. Yuna screamed an objection. Guards grabbed her and pulled her back. Elias felt numb. Neural dissolution. They were going to erase his mind. Everything he was, everything he had ever been, would be destroyed. It was a death worse than death. The guards forced him to his knees before the arbiter's stone. This was tradition. The condemned had to kneel before the ancient relic as their sentence was spoken. It was supposed to be symbolic. The stone had not responded to anyone in 12,000 years. Sereth raised her staff. Let the judgment of the tribunal be recorded for all time. Let this human face the consequence of his crimes. She never finished. Elias's hand touched the base of the stone. He had not meant to do it. His body had simply moved, pulled by that strange force he had felt since the first day. The arbiter's stone exploded with light. Golden fire poured from the crystal, filling the entire hall. The symbols on the walls began to glow, one by one, like stars coming to life after an endless night. The air itself seemed to vibrate with power. Everyone froze. The elder delegates stared in horror. The Cathari fell silent. Even the guards released their grip on Elias and stepped back in fear. And then the stone spoke. The voice was not loud, but it filled every corner of the hall. It was ancient. It was powerful. It spoke in all languages at once, so that every being could understand. A bearer stands before me. Sereth's face went pale. Impossible, she whispered. The stone is dead. It has been dead after 10,000 years, the voice continued. A bearer of justice has come. The light wrapped around Elias like a living thing. He felt it moving through him, not touching his body but something deeper. His mind, his heart, his soul. He felt it searching, judging, seeing every moment of his life, every choice he had ever made, every secret he had ever kept. And then the voice spoke again. This one carries no guilt. The hall erupted in chaos. Beings shouted and screamed. Ambassador Kethax tried to move toward the door, but he found he could not. None of them could. The stone had sealed the chamber. His heart holds the weight of those he could not save, the voice said. Not those he destroyed. The true perpetrators hide among you. Elias rose to his feet. Golden light swirled around him. He did not understand what was happening, but he felt something he had not felt in days. Hope. The arbiter's stone pulsed with ancient power, and the voice asked a question that would change the galaxy forever. Bearer, will you render judgment? The golden light held Elias like a gentle hand. It was warm, it was ancient, and it was waiting for his answer. Around him, the hall of eternal verdict had transformed. The dark stone walls now glowed with symbols that had been invisible moments before. The air hummed with energy that made his skin tingle. Every being in the chamber stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the impossible scene before them. The arbiter's stone blazed like a star. After 12,000 years of silence, it was awake. Bearer, the voice repeated. Will you render judgment? Elias found his voice. I do not understand. What is a bearer? Why me? The stone pulsed, and images flooded his mind. He saw things that no human had ever seen. He saw the precursors, the first civilization, the builders of the stone. They were tall beings of light and shadow, neither fully solid nor fully spirit. They had ruled the galaxy millions of years ago, before any of the elder races existed. He saw them create the arbiter's stone. They poured their knowledge into it, their wisdom, their understanding of justice. The stone was meant to be a perfect judge, a tool that could see the truth in any heart. But the precursors knew that perfect judgment required more than knowledge. It required compassion. It required the ability to understand not just what someone did, but why they did it. Cold logic was not enough. So they searched for a species that could balance both. A species with the capacity for logic but also for emotion, for justice but also for mercy. They found a young world, a small planet with blue oceans and green lands. They saw potential there. They planted a seed. They shaped the creatures who lived there. And then they left, knowing that it would take millions of years for the seed to grow. The architects called them the unfinished, the stone said. A race of chaos and compassion, violence and mercy. They were made to carry justice where cold logic fails. Elias understood. The precursors had created humanity, not to be perfect, but to be balanced. Their emotions were not a weakness. They were the very thing that made them capable of true justice. You have waited 12,000 years, Elias said slowly. For a human to touch you? For a worthy human. Many have touched me. None have carried the balance. You lost those you loved. You carry guilt for those you could not save. Yet you did not become bitter. You did not turn to hatred. You chose to protect others instead. Memories flashed through Elias's mind. His sister, killed in a pirate attack when he was young. His failure to save a colony from a disease outbreak. Every person he had lost. Every life he could not protect. The stone had seen all of it. Your pain did not break you, the stone continued. It made you stronger. This is the mark of a true bearer. High Adjudicator Sereth finally found her voice. It shook with fear and anger. This is a malfunction. The stone is corrupted. It cannot simply declare a guilty man innocent. The stone's light turned toward her, and she stepped back as if struck. You speak of corruption, the voice said. Let us speak of truth. The air in the center of the hall shimmered. A holographic image appeared, pulled from the stone's ancient memory banks. It showed a secret meeting on a Zythron ship. Ambassador Kethax sat at a table with several other beings. The human will make a perfect target, the holographic Kethax said. He is investigating our operations. We will use his face to commit the massacre. The Kethari will demand war. The other species will choose sides. In the chaos, we will expand our borders. What about the evidence? Another voice asked. We will create perfect evidence. DNA samples, ship logs, witnesses who will identify him. The human legal systems are weak. They will not be able to defend him. The image shifted. It showed a laboratory where a biosynthetic clone was being grown. The clone looked exactly like Elias. Same face, same body, same fingerprints. It was a perfect copy, designed for a single purpose: murder. The real recording played on. It showed the clone landing on Seraph 4. It showed the massacre from angles that no survivor could have seen. It showed the clone burning homes, killing families, and then returning to a Zithran ship that waited in orbit. 3,000 innocent Cathari, killed not by a human, but by a machine wearing a human face. All to start a war. The hall was silent. The Cathari survivors stared at the images with wide eyes. Their grief was transforming into something else. Not rage at Elias, but rage at those who had truly killed their loved ones. No, Cathax whispered. His mandibles clicked rapidly. This is a trick. The human has corrupted the stone somehow. Humans are clever. The stone cannot be corrupted, the voice interrupted. I have waited 10,000 years in silence. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen every truth and every lie that has entered this hall, and I see you, Kethax of the Zithran Dominion. I see the blood on your hands. The Zithran ambassador turned and ran toward the door. But the doors would not open. The stone had sealed everything. You cannot run, the voice said. There is nowhere in the galaxy where truth cannot find you. More images appeared. Years of Zithran crimes played out in the air. Other massacres blamed on innocent species. Bribes paid to officials across the galaxy. Secret deals to destabilize governments. The Zithran had been manipulating galactic politics for centuries, always from the shadows, always blaming others, and they had not acted alone. The stone's light turned to High Adjudicator Sarath. She stood rigid, her pale face now white with terror. You knew, the voice said. You saw the evidence that the human advocate presented. You knew it was true. But the Zithran paid you well. They gave you technology. They gave you power. And in exchange, you buried the truth. Sarath tried to speak, but no words came out. The precursors believed that justice required destruction, the stone said. They built me to punish the guilty with absolute force. But they also wondered if there was another way. A better way. They hoped that the unfinished the humans would show them. The light around Elias grew brighter. He felt power flowing through him. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. He could feel the stone's ancient strength. With a thought, he could destroy everyone in this room who had wronged him. The Zithran ambassador, the corrupt judge, everyone who had lied, everyone who had tried to erase his mind and let murderers go free. He could feel the temptation. After everything they had done to him, would anyone blame him for wanting revenge? Bearer, the stone said, the power is yours. The guilty stand before you. What is your judgment? Elias looked at his hands. They glowed with golden light. He looked at Kethax, trembling in the corner. He looked at Sarath, frozen with fear. He looked at the Kethari survivors, waiting to see what would happen. And then he looked at Yuna Chen, standing at the edge of the hall. She watched him with steady eyes. She did not look afraid. She looked like she trusted him. Elias took a deep breath. I will not be an executioner, he said. The stone pulsed. Explain. Justice is not about punishment, Elias said. It is about truth. It is about accountability. It is about giving people a chance to rebuild. If I kill them, I become what they accused me of being. I become a murderer. He turned to face the tribunal, the beings who had condemned him, the beings who had wanted to erase his mind. I choose to expose them instead. Let the galaxy see what they have done. Let their own people judge them. Let the truth speak for itself. The stone was silent for a long moment. Elias could feel it thinking, considering, judging his judgment. Then it spoke again, and its voice was different, softer, almost surprised. The architects believed justice required destruction. The bearer has shown them wrong. Humanity's justice is greater. The light in the hall changed. It was still bright, but it was no longer threatening. It felt like dawn breaking after a long night. So be it, the stone said. Let truth be shown. And every screen in the galaxy lit up with the evidence of the Zithran conspiracy. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy in seconds. Every screen, every communicator, every public display showed the same thing. The truth. Billions of beings watched as the Zithran conspiracy unfolded before their eyes. They saw the secret meetings. They saw the creation of the clone. They saw the real footage of the Sereth 4 massacre not committed by a human, but by a machine built by the Zithran Dominion. They saw decades of hidden crimes, other species framed for murders they did not commit, governments destabilized, wars started, all so that the Zithran could expand their power while pretending to be innocent. In the Hall of Eternal Verdict, the Arbiter's stone held its light steady as the truth poured across the stars. Ambassador Kethax fell to his knees. His clicking voice had gone silent. His black eyes stared at nothing. Everything he had built, everything his people had schemed for, was collapsing. "Please," he whispered. "Please." I was following orders. The Dominion Council demanded results. I had no choice. Elias looked down at him. The golden light still swirled around his body, giving him the power to destroy this creature with a thought. Part of him wanted to. Part of him remembered the footage of burning children, the tears of the survivors, the chains on his wrists. But he had made his choice. "Everyone has a choice," Elias said. "You chose power over innocent lives. Now you will face the justice of your own people." Already, messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. The Zithran homeworld was in chaos. Citizens who had believed their government was honest now saw the truth. Military officers who had followed orders without question now understood what they had been supporting. Within hours, the Dominion Council would be arrested by their own people. The Zithran Empire would not fall, but it would change forever. High Adjudicator Sereth tried to speak. Her voice came out as a croak. "The tribunal. We did not know. We were deceived." The stone's light turned toward her, and she flinched. "You were not deceived," Elias said. "You were paid. Dr. Chen showed you evidence that the clone existed. You buried it because the Zithran promised you power." Sereth's pale face crumbled. She had spent her whole life building a reputation for fairness and wisdom. Now every being in the galaxy knew she was a fraud. I will resign," she whispered. "I will face whatever punishment the tribunal decides." "That is not for me to decide," Elias replied. "Your people will judge you. That is how it should be." The Morvax representative rose from his seat. He was a large being, covered in gray scales, with a voice like rolling thunder. Unlike Sereth and Kethax, he had not been part of the conspiracy. His eyes showed shock, but also something else. "Respect. The stone has chosen," he said slowly. "For the first time in 12,000 years, a bearer has been named. What does this mean for the galaxy?" The Arbiter's stone pulsed gently. "It means that justice will no longer sleep. The bearer will stand as a witness to truth, not as an executioner, but as a guide." The Elindri representative, a being of flowing light and crystal, spoke next. "The legend said the bearer would have the power to destroy civilizations, yet this human chose mercy. Is this correct?" The architects believed that perfect justice required perfect punishment, but they were wrong. True justice requires understanding, compassion, the ability to see not just what was done, but why it was done. This bearer has shown a better way. Elias felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He had not asked for this. He had not wanted to become a symbol. He just wanted to clear his name and go home. But the universe rarely cared what people wanted. The Kithari section of the hall had gone quiet. The survivors sat in their seats, their large eyes wet with tears. They had come here wanting revenge. They had wanted to see the monster who killed their families punished. Now they knew the truth. The monster had never been human at all. An elderly Kithari rose from her seat. Her fur was gray with age, and she moved slowly, leaning on a carved wooden staff. Elias recognized her from the trial. She had been one of the witnesses who identified him. She had lost her daughter and 2 grandchildren on Sereth 4. She walked toward him, and the guards moved to stop her. But Elias raised his hand, and they stepped back. The old woman stopped in front of him. For a long moment, she just looked at his face. The same face that had haunted her nightmares. The face she had believed belonged to her family's killer. "I hated you," she said softly. "I wanted you to suffer. I wanted to watch them erase your mind and know that justice had been done." Elias nodded. "I understand, but it was not you." Her voice cracked. "All this time, I hated the wrong being. The real killers were laughing at our pain. They used our grief to start their wars. I am sorry. Elias said. I am sorry for what you lost. I am sorry that I could not save them. The old woman reached out and touched his hand. The golden light did not harm her. It seemed to welcome her. You carry the weight of those you could not save, she said. The stone told us. You understand loss. Yes. Then you understand why I needed someone to blame. Why we all did. Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the hall. She bowed to him. Thank you, she said. Not for revenge, but for truth. Now we can grieve properly. Now we can heal. One by one, the other Kethari survivors rose and bowed. They had lost everything, but they had also gained something precious. They knew what really happened. They knew who was truly responsible, and they knew that justice, real justice, was being served. Elias felt tears on his own face. He had been prepared to die. He had been prepared to have his mind erased. He had not been prepared for this. Thank you, he whispered back. The stone's light began to dim. Not because it was dying again, but because its work was done. The truth had been revealed. The guilty had been exposed. What happened next was up to the beings of the galaxy to decide. But before it went quiet, the stone spoke one last time. Bearer, you have proven that justice does not require destruction. But the work is not finished. There will be other lies, other conspiracies, other innocents who need someone to speak for them. Elias looked up at the ancient crystal. What are you asking me to do? I ask nothing. I offer. The bond between us will remain. When truth is needed, call upon me. When justice is threatened, I will answer. And if I refuse, then I will sleep again and wait for another. Elias thought about his life before all this. The quiet work of a peacekeeper. The simple satisfaction of helping people solve their problems without violence. He had never wanted power or fame, but he thought about the Kethari survivors. He thought about the other species the Zythran had framed. He thought about all the innocents across the galaxy who had no one to speak for them. He had been given a gift. A terrible, wonderful gift. And he knew what he had to do with it. I accept, he said. The stone pulsed warmly, and Elias could have sworn he felt it smile. Then go. Bearer of justice. The galaxy is watching. Show them what humanity can be. The light faded, and the hall was quiet. The arbiter's stone stood dark once more, but not dead. Sleeping, perhaps. Waiting. Yuna Chen walked through the stunned crowd and stood beside Elias. She looked at him with a mixture of wonder and concern. So, she said, what happens now? Elias looked around at the transformed hall, at the disgraced officials, at the weeping survivors, at the representatives of 100 species who were only now beginning to understand what had changed. Now, he said, we rebuild, and we make sure this never happens again. Outside the station, across 1,000 worlds, beings were asking the same question. What happens when a human is given the power of a god and chooses mercy instead of revenge? They were about to find out. 6 months had passed since the awakening. Elias stood at the window of the new Hall of Justice, looking out at the stars. The station had been rebuilt, expanded, and renamed. It was no longer just a courthouse for the powerful. It was a beacon for anyone who needed truth. Behind him, the arbiter's stone rested in its new chamber. It was quiet most days, sleeping peacefully. But Elias could feel it in the back of his mind, a warm presence, always watching, always ready. The door opened, and Yuna Chen walked in. She wore the uniform of the Investigative Corps, the new organization she had built from nothing. Her team had agents on 50 worlds now, hunting down the last remnants of the syndicate, exposing corruption wherever they found it. The Zythran trials are finished, she said. Keth Axe will spend the rest of his life in prison. Most of the Dominion Council got similar sentences. A few were executed by their own people. And Serath, exiled. She will never hold power again. Her own species stripped her of everything. Yuna paused. Some would say she got off easy. Maybe. But her own people made that choice. That is how it should be. Yuna smiled slightly. You really believe that, do you not? That justice should come from within, not from above. I do. Elias turned from the window. The stone gave me power. But power without wisdom is just violence. If I had executed everyone who wronged me, what would have changed? Someone else would have risen to take their place. The system would have stayed broken. And now the system is changing. Slowly, painfully, but changing. It was true. The revelation of the Zithran conspiracy had shaken the galaxy to its core. Species that had trusted the elder races now questioned everything. Old alliances crumbled. New ones formed. The tribunal had been reformed, with representatives from dozens of species including humanity. For the first time in history, humans sat as equals in the highest court of the galaxy. But more than politics had changed. The way beings thought about justice had changed. Elias had received millions of messages in the past 6 months. Some were thank you notes from species the Zithran had wronged. Some were requests for help from innocents who had been falsely accused. Some were simply questions from beings trying to understand what had happened. Why did you choose mercy? They asked. Why did you not destroy them? Elias answered each one the same way. Because destruction is easy. Healing is hard. And the hard path is usually the right one. A chime sounded. Elias looked at his console and saw a message from the Kethari homeworld. He opened it and found a video from a familiar face, the old woman who had lost her daughter on Sereth 4. Bearer, she said. Her voice was stronger now, and there was peace in her eyes. I wanted you to know that we have built a memorial for those we lost. It stands in the central square of our capital, and at its base, we carved your words. Justice is not about punishment. It is about truth, accountability, and the chance to rebuild. Thank you for giving us that chance. The video ended, and Elias sat in silence for a moment. He had never expected to become a symbol. He still was not comfortable with it, but if his words could help others find peace, then perhaps it was worth the weight he carried. You should rest, Yuna said. You have been working non-stop for months. There is too much to do. There will always be too much to do. That does not mean you have to do it all yourself. She was right, of course. Elias had been training others, human and alien alike, in the philosophy of mercy-tempered justice. He could not be everywhere. He could not solve every problem, but he could teach others to carry the torch. A young Morvax named Tarek had shown particular promise. So had an Ilindri called Saris. And there were humans too, dozens of them, who had come from Earth to learn what Elias had to teach. The galaxy is watching. Elias had told them on their first day. They expect us to fail. They expect humans to be violent and emotional and short-sighted. Prove them wrong. Show them that our emotions are not weaknesses, they are the very things that let us understand justice in ways cold logic never could. His students had taken those words to heart. Already, they were making a difference across dozens of worlds. A soft pulse came from the arbiter's stone. Elias walked over to it and placed his hand on the cool crystal. You are still here, he said quietly. I am always here, the stone replied. Its voice was gentler now, more like a friend than an ancient power. The bond between us will last until your death, and perhaps beyond. Do you ever regret choosing me? A human, of all beings? Regret is a strange concept to me. But no, the architects hoped for a species that could balance logic and compassion. They did not know if such a species could exist. You have shown that it can. I am just one person. I cannot change the entire galaxy. You already have, Elias smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. What do you think the precursors would say if they could see this? He asked. If they could see what their seed grew into? The stone was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, there was something almost like wonder in its voice. I believe they would say. Well done. Later that evening, Elias walked through the public levels of the station. Beings of all species filled the corridors, some visiting the Hall of Justice, others simply living their lives. A few recognized him and nodded with respect. Most did not know his face. He preferred it that way. In a small observation deck, he found a young Kethari child staring out at the stars. She was maybe 5 or 6 years old, with soft brown fur and enormous curious eyes. Her mother stood nearby, watching her daughter with a gentle smile. Mama, the child said, pointing at a distant ship. Is that the human's ship? The one who saved everyone? The mother looked at Elias. Recognition flickered in her eyes, but she said nothing to give him away. I do not know, little one. Why do you ask? Teacher says he had the power to destroy the bad people, but he did not. Teacher says he chose to be kind instead. The child tilted her head. Why would someone do that? The mother knelt beside her daughter. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not hurt someone, even when they hurt you. It takes more courage to heal than to destroy. That sounds hard. It is hard. That is what makes it special. The child thought about this for a moment. Then she nodded seriously. I want to be like that when I grow up. Strong and kind. Elias watched them quietly. He did not interrupt. He did not need to. This was why he had made his choice. Not for monuments or titles or power, but for moments like this, small, quiet moments where a child learned that kindness was stronger than cruelty. The galaxy had declared him guilty. They had tried to erase his mind. They had called humans dangerous and emotional and unworthy of trust. And when he was given ultimate power, he had proven them wrong, not by destroying his enemies, but by showing them a better way. Elias turned from the observation deck and walked back toward the Hall of Justice. The stars stretched endlessly around him, filled with 1 billion worlds and 1 trillion beings, each with their own struggles and hopes and fears. He could not save all of them. He could not judge all of them. He could not be everywhere at once, but he could try. And that was enough. Bearer of justice, he whispered to himself. The title still strange on his tongue. For the first time in months, he smiled. Humanity had been judged by the galaxy and found guilty of being too wild, too emotional, too unpredictable. They had been dismissed as a young species that would never amount to anything important. Now the galaxy understood the truth. Those were never flaws. They were gifts. And the bearer of justice was just the beginning.